All right, y'all. Welcome to my third podcast. This is Gabe's Nutritional Health Ramblings. So, I said I'd find a topic today that would be interesting, or, perhaps recommended to me. But I saw something real interesting about a man. I saw like a little clip of this. It's a guy by the name of Bryan Johnson. And no, it's not the Liver King guy. It's actually some really rich billionaire who's on a quest to, solve immortality, which is kind of weird, right? There's always these super rich Lex Luthor kind of guys that want to, be immortal, which is cool, I suppose, right? I mean, it's hard, right? If you want to do a study on that, right? You need to have a ton of money, have a lot of people, trap them in a lab, do a randomized control trial, and, and the perfect metrics to pull something off like this. But you can't really do that because it's immoral, right? You can't really put a person's life in a lab to test and have a good scientific result or not. So the next best thing would be to have a guy like Bryan Johnson, right? Use all his money, his resources to, you know, figure things out. Now, the thing about Bryan Johnson is, I think he has like an algorithm. He talks about having this algorithm that, computes all his data, and his data then helps him figure out what are the best choices to make for, his health. The, the more I think about it, I don't think that's a really good solution to his problem. The reason I say that is because a lot of studies out there are kind of biased, or there's only so much we know or don't know. The thing about the literature in science is you have cell studies, then you have studies in people, and then in animals. A lot are done in animals. I mean, a good study on animals would be something toxic, right? Because if it's toxic to an animal, it's more than likely toxic to humans in bigger doses or whatever, right? But based on the data, right? He's gone plant-based, he's gone sort of vegan, whatever we call you. But it's interesting how when you look at the data, it brings him to this conclusion, right? That you got to go plant-based, and that's the healthiest thing you could do. But I don't think it's the healthiest thing you can do, right? The reason I say that is because for the longest time, the literature has said, you know, eating meat is bad for you because, meat has saturated fat. And then because meat has saturated fat, it'll then, clog up your heart with, increasing your LDL and all these problems, right? You don't want high cholesterol because it's bad for you. When it's contraindicated that the more cholesterol a person has, the longer they live. Why is that, right? Shouldn't they die earlier? It's kind of weird. But I think it's because there's a lot of bad data, a lot of bad science, and when you have bad methodology and bad data, at the end of your experiment, the results are going to be pretty swayed, right? So if you go in knowing these things, right, that higher LDL is bad, right, and then you're going to result the conclusion for it to be bad, then already it's kind of biased because we know that higher LDL is good for you. However, you don't want LDL that's oxidated due to advanced glycated end products. So like having high blood sugar, having a higher A1C, smoking, eating junk food. We know these things are bad for you and it will affect your LDL and it will affect oxidation in other parts of your body, leading to, potential health problems. So I'm looking at Bryan Johnson and, his regimen, the exercise stuff is superb. That's good. You need exercise, that's good for you. People are way too sedentary today. So I encourage people to, do more exercise. And, I applaud them for having a little more focus on weight, weightlifting, weight resistance training, however you want to call that. Basically, putting the stress on your muscle, right? A lot of people are focused on running, right? Which is cool, it's great, but I mean, running, in a sense, is putting you in the mode of our ancestors running away from, a tiger or an animal that wants to kill them, right? A predator, which would be considered apex, right? Because, they could kill you, right? If you have no tools, you're kind of screwed and, you die to a predator. So when you run, you're very stressed out. And you're stressed out because, you're getting away from something, right? Your blood starts pumping, you got a lot more cortisol, you run faster, you get your adrenaline going. So I don't think, in terms of health, running is good. I think walking can be great because it's calm and you're comfortable and it's more natural. Whereas if you're running, the only reason ever you'd be running is to run away from something, right? Like, I don't know, an axe murderer maybe? I wouldn't walk away from that, but I would run. So going back to Bryan Johnson, he has this algorithm, and if you're gonna use I don't know, let's say a Chat GPT or something that's gonna calculate and read everything, right? It doesn't understand nuance. It's very binary. It's very one and zeros, right? It's very logical to what conclusions are, right? So if I make a really bad study and I propel all these, plant-based things to be good for you, right? And then I realize, it never, these studies never account for the bad things, right? It'll be like bad things in terms of like your score, right? From, testing your blood, from testing urine, testing your poop, testing samples, right? However, they don't really exactly expound upon the detrimental effects of. So what I mean by this, I mean, if you're propelling up a plant-based diet, right, or this algorithm is, right, then it's going to read all the biased conclusions and data that says plant-based this, and that is amazing, right? It's the best thing ever. Eat all these plant-based foods, right, that are superfoods, when in fact, there are numerous downsides to eating plant-based food, right? And people like to think plants are the best thing ever, right? Granted, it's never been proven ever that, a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet is very healthy. Now, might it be better than a standard American diet? For the most part, it can be, because they're not eating toxic chemicals and all this crap, right? This junk food, artificial flavorings, MSG, and whatever else that's bad that we don't even know of yet. So in that circumstance, you can argue that plant-based things can be way better. However, we then gotta go into the realm of what's bad, right? I like to focus on things that are bad or possibly bad because we're so focused on things that are good for you, right, that we never really see the other end of that rubber band. And once you pull that rubber band far enough and you let go of it, it's going to really hurt you. So people need to realize that in plants, right, there are compounds, and these compounds can be quite detrimental to you. When you think about a plant, right, a plant exists to live, just like any other life in this world, right? However, the problem with plants, right, is they can't run away, right? Like a predator, like a gazelle against a predator, or a rabbit running away, right? It's stuck in the ground and you can't do much. You're just kind of screwed, right? So the plant, right, has to make all sorts of chemicals to protect itself. Because if you can't protect yourself, you die and you go without a fight. But the plants will, adapt to have chemicals to fight, right? And there's a lot of chemicals that could affect people, right? You have nitrogen-containing compounds. This could be caffeine, nicotine, extropine, morphine. And, we humans, we're bigger, so we're not really going to be affected the same way as a smaller animal, right? I mean, I'm sure a rabbit eating caffeine, right, or nicotine from, a plant, right, it's going to feel horrible. But because humans are bigger, we're not really that affected. And then you have volatile oils from plants, which could be beneficial, but, when done in large amounts, can affect you. You have citronelle and citronella oil. It could cause irritation to your skin, allergic reactions to some people. You have eucalyptol, which is found eucalyptus oil. Can be good for you, but, when done too much and then held in a higher concentration, can cause you problems. Then you have thujol from wormwood oil, which is great if you're the kind of person who wants to detox. parasites, but again, you do too much, it could be harmful. It could give you GI problems and disturbances. Then you have other sorts of things that could affect your rate. Yeah, safrole, and it can strain the liver, have carcinogenic effects with prolonged exposure. So basically, what I want to tell people, right, is although these compounds, right, can be good for you, they can also be very bad for you if done in high doses, right? Because again, plants weren't making these compounds to help humans, right? They never had that in mind. They had that to, deter us, right? More to deter smaller animals and herbivores that eat plants, right? But for humans, we're different. We're both different. We're gonna go like that. But we've used these plants, right, as drugs, and that's where we get pharmaceuticals from. But with these herbs, which then become pharmaceuticals, they're herbs, right? They're good for you, right? They can be good for you, but if done wrong, if taken too much, it's bad for you, right? People should understand that humans do not have a lack of certain herbs. We don't need herbs. They can help, but they're there as a tool, right? It's not a necessity like vitamins and minerals. Then you have phenols, which are alcohol based. I'm not a big fan of antioxidants and that kind of stuff, but I don't know, you get tannins, flavonoids, lignans. The problem with these is they can hinder your protein digestion, right? And you could absorb less nutrients. So the problem with eating this is it interferes with your digestive enzymes, impairs your nutrient absorption, disrupts your gut function, which, can lead to malnourishment, right, to an extent, right? Kind of reminds me of that study about, I think it was what, black bean with the corn tortilla or something? And it was measuring the zinc. What they were trying to say, right, is, in their conclusion, by putting these two things together due to the high amount of phytate, it actually reduced the amount of zinc that a person can absorb, right? Zinc's important. You need it for your testosterone, you need it for your hormones, you need it for your immune system, you need it to detox, you need it for your hair, for your skin. You need zinc for a lot of things, right? So if you're eating these things, right, unknowingly, you can reduce the amount of zinc you're getting from your nutrition intake. So it's just to be mindful of what can happen or what may happen depending on the foods you eat, right? Then you have glycosides, which are interesting, but I don't think we eat much. Glycosides can release hydrogen cyanide and use hydrolysis, and it messes with your cell respiration, inhibits your cytochrome oxidation, which can lead to asphyxiation. I think some of these include like cassava, the seeds of an apple, cherry, apricot, affects your heart, leads to toxic effects on your cardiovascular system. One thing I find interesting is it could inhibit your sodium-potassium pump in your cell membranes, which means it could affect your energy levels, your production of mitochondria, all sorts of things from ATP. So just to keep in mind, right, that these things can have problems. Then you have saponins, which kind of like are the detergents. Problem is they could disrupt your cell membranes, lead to hemolysis, which is when your red blood cells get destroyed, and they can irritate your mucous membranes, right? So it's all about being careful with eating plant foods, right? I don't recommend eating a lot of plant foods, but I recommend eating, the least toxic plant foods if you're coming into a healthier diet, right? Away from a standard American diet, away from junk food, away from all this nasty crap that could affect you negatively, right? Because, let's be honest, right? You're doing the best, you're moving to eat healthier. Stopping junk food to eat plant-based foods can be helpful, I think, which they can be, right? Because you're using food that's less poisonous than food that's horrible poison, right? So when you think about this, right, we also need to understand, right, that humans are hyper carnivores. Humans got bigger brains, bigger muscles, smarter, faster, adapted, started making tools when we started eating the fat of animals, eating more protein of the animals. Because humans are, we're flesh bags, right? We're made of protein, amino acids. That's kind of who we are. So, protein's important for us, right? You eat protein, you have digestive enzymes, it breaks down to amino acids, and then we use them for various functions. But there also are, when you eat plants, right, protein inhibitors, right? So if you mix these things with your meat, right, you're going to absorb less protein. And for some reason, the biggest culprits are always legumes, beans, lentils, peas, soybeans. Then you have soybeans, like tofu, soy milk, tempeh, soy protein isolates, which is kind of funny, right? Because you're going to do, let's say, a soy protein shake, and within those shakes are protein inhibitors, so it's kind of contradictory, you know? It cancels each other out in a way. Not that much, right? But it's like, well, we're going to eat something that's going to reduce the amount of protein, right? Your goal is not going to be efficient. Potatoes need to be cooked really well, especially green potatoes. As selenium, people feel bad, stomach problems. Also, they contain protein inhibitors, which is why it's really important to really cook potatoes well. Then you got wheat, grains, barley, rye. Also have protein inhibitors. Some rice do too. And then you got raspberries and blackberries, which contain them, but they're very low, so I wouldn't be worried about them. Then to an extent you have seeds, nuts, spinach, and tomatoes. Those suck if you're eating protein. I wouldn't recommend mixing that. You get almonds, hazelnuts, cashews, sunflower, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds. I think there was like a documentary about how people were eating cashews, right? And how they're producing them, and when they're in the factory and, they're shelling them and, preparing them, right? The employees have to wear like gloves because they get like burns or something in their hands, and, they have to wear all sorts of protective equipment because it, irritates their skin. And then we're eating that, so I'd say be careful with cashews. And then, of course, if you're a big fan of, you know, Dr. Gundry, he's a big lectin guy, that the problem with lectins is it can bind to carbohydrates and interfere with digestion. It can trigger an immune response, cause inflammation in the gut lining, interfere with your digestive enzymes, which means it reduces nutrient availability and you can't break down your food completely. Some people get hives, skin rashes, respiratory symptoms from, you know, the most to the least. You got legumes, grains, nightshades, squash, and pumpkin seeds. But yeah, one of the problems with lectins is kind of reminds me of gluten, how it affects zonulin. Because when you eat food, right, your intestines, they're supposed to be full of villi. And these villi is where you get your nutrients. But then you have these gut junction gaps, in the wall, right? So it's got to be really tight, It's kind of like a castle, right? You don't want any gaps within your walls, or else it can be penetrated and people can go through it and, get inside your castle, right? You're trying to be defensive. So when you eat, like, like corn, high protein, you eat gluten, casein in some cases, and lectin, it could break the wall. Not break it, right? But, penetrate and expose the wall, messing with zonulin. And then you get lipopolysaccharides, and you get particles of food, they go into your blood, and they circulate, and they shouldn't be there, and it causes possibly, inflammation of autoimmunity, right? For some people. Some people have stomach problems. Some people have all sorts of problems when they have leaky gut. So it's important to understand that, you get leaky gut because you eat plant-based foods. You don't just get it for no reason, right? So it's important to be mindful that these things can cause problems with you. Moving on, you have saponins. They disrupt cell membranes. Uh, I don't know. When I think of saponins, I think about, what's a soap? It's a really healthy soap, or I think it's healthy, I don't know. I mean, because you put things in your skin, you absorb it, and it's like, alright, it might affect you in different ways. But I think it was Castile soap or Castilian soap, that soap that has like a bunch of words written around it, all sorts of oils that were saponified. So I don't know if that's healthy or not, really, because saponins, when mixed with water, can disrupt cell membranes and affect the functioning of cells. Which, we talk about leaky gut, right? There's also cell permeability, which means you can have leaky cells that affects your nutrient absorption. Again, hemolysis, which ruptures membranes of red blood cells. And you don't want that to happen, right? it's not a good thing. So eating supplements in legumes, quinoa, chia, amaranth, yucca, yam, oats, and soybeans. Then you have oxalates, right? Which I think the leading figure talking about oxalates is Sally K. Norton. These are compounds that have oxalic acid. And the thing is, they form these crystals, right? These calcium crystals, and it irritates, your skin, right? And I think this might be something that affects people with what, crest, right? Crest. And really, what calcium oxalate is, it's a deterrent from you eating plant foods, right? Like spinach, rhubarb, beets, Swiss chard, almonds, soy, sweet potatoes. They have a ton of oxalates, right? And really, these bind with other minerals in our body, and they form insoluble calcium oxalate crystals, and they're stuck within your body, you know? You get kidney stones. That's a big one. That's a more common known one. Uh, from oxalates, they can also be deposited in your joints. So some people have pain in their joints, right? You're trying to move them, and it's painful for some reason, right? You just don't know why, but you realize, okay, I'm having this buildup of calcium where it's not supposed to be, right? And this could go to other parts of your body. And I think maybe it could be responsible for like Peyronie's disease, which I believe is a calcium buildup. If I'm wrong, I think, right? So I think if there's anything within the body, I'm not a doctor, right? Can't diagnose things, can't treat things, etc. Not medical advice, but I think people have these certain problems, right, that involve calcium. It could quite possibly be a buildup of calcium oxalates, right? So, you would need citrate to break and bind to these oxalates to get rid of them, right? This would be like, doing lemon water. That's a common one. You want, of course, reduce oxalates, because as Sally K. Norton talks about, right? If you keep consuming oxalates, you can't get rid of them. So you got to reduce them as much as you can to get rid of them. Then you start dumping these oxalates. But she does say to be careful, right? Because if you do it too hard, you can have negative symptoms. You could have pain, right? Because you're essentially peeing out these little calcium crystals. So she says to be careful, right? You also find oxalates in chocolate, unfortunately. So she does say, if you're trying to detox oxalates, right? Maybe eat a little bit of oxalate foods, maybe a little bit of potato, maybe a little bit of, chocolate, right? But to, avoid spinach, rhubarb, beets, and Swiss chard, right? Because they're just ridiculous. I think another problem with people on keto, right, is they have problems with keto after a while, right? And I think the problem might be is they're doing a lot of keto junk foods, right? Because the basis of every keto baked good, right, is always almond flour, right? And they get almond flour, and then they do nut butters too, right? Like almond butter, right? The problem is it's such a deep concentration of nuts, right, of almonds, that you get this ridiculous amount of oxalates, and you start building up, building up, building up, building up, right? And it's detrimental because it goes into your soft tissue. Then you get the problems with your joints, the pain, crest, like Raynaud's, Some people get, now I think this might have to do with having a lack of vitamin K2, which, it's called activator X. That you need activator X to put calcium where it belongs, right? So if you get deposits of calcium in the wrong places, it's because, you don't have vitamin K2, right? Like, I think, for example, coronary artery calcium, right? If you don't have K2, then you get deposits of calcium where it's not supposed to be. So I'm thinking maybe, quite possibly, K2 can help with calcium oxalates. Maybe, right? I'm not sure, but logically, it seems to me that would help too. So that's another thing from eating, plant foods that can cause problems. Now, oxalates can be difficult because it takes years to detox, right? I think she's been detoxing for what, like 5 years over 5 years. So you can take a magic pill for that. because your body has to break down apart these calcium oxalates and then replace it with the right calcium. So that's interesting. And then you have latex, which I was thinking of, like latex clothing, but really it's a sort of milky sap from plants. So rubber trees, right? Fig trees. There are these alkaloids which can be toxic to the nervous system. Apparently some people can get tremors, seizures, even death in some cases, but I think that may be due to people having a latex allergy, right? And, if you eat avocados, kiwis, bananas, chestnuts, melons, passion fruit, right? This can affect those people who have a latex allergy, which is pretty interesting. And I can kind of concur with this because I'll go to the garden, I'll take out some, rubber trees or some plants with the milky sap, and yeah, it burns you, it irritates you, it doesn't feel good. I'll have these, kind of reddish bumps for a few days. So that's the reason why I started wearing gloves to not have that problem. But I don't think it's a big problem. But for some people, it's horrible, right? It's like an allergy. So some people know who they are. And then you have, what is it? Tannins, right? Now tannins, they're in tea, right? The problem with tannins is they could inhibit digestion and nutrient absorption in herbivores. Doing too much tannin as in a toxicity can lead to GI issues, reduced feed intake, nutrient imbalances. I think it could inhibit absorption of iron to a degree, if I remember correctly. It binds to your nutrients. So a list of this would be things like, tea, black tea, pomegranates, grapes, but specifically more in red grapes, blackberries, red wine, nuts, seeds, legumes, chocolate, and the peel of some fruits. I don't know about all fruits, but I think the peeling has a lot of tannins. And tannins are the chemicals used to tan leather, which is kind of why it's called tannins. So I always hear people say, "Oh, well, be careful with tannins because it tans leather and look how leather it becomes, right?" Maybe. I mean, the thing about leather is, you know, it's dead, right? You get the skin from a cow and then you tan it. But humans are still alive and we're eating tannins, and it inhibits digestion, so we know it's bad in that way. But I don't think it's tanning you from the inside out because, I think you gotta be dead for that. And then something interesting, right, is apparently there's some amino acid derivatives that could mimic certain amino acids. So depending on your problem, right, some people get tremors, convulsions, paralysis, some reduced nutrient absorption, GI issues, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal discomfort, and I don't know. But I think some examples are like mimosine from like legumes. Apparently, it affects your hair loss and your infertility. So I'm thinking, right, if you're eating beans and you have hair loss and infertility, it might be the mimosine affecting you. Then you have cavenin from legumes, alfalfa beans. No, it's alfalfa and then beans, right? Yeah. It can mimic arginine, which you need for your blood, right? But it can act as an anti-nutrient because it's a mimicker. Then you have analogs of lysine from legumes, which can interfere with protein synthesis and lysine metabolism. And then again, you have hydroxyproline from legumes, which can negatively impact your digestion and utilization of proteins. So it's something to be careful about, right? They keep saying legumes and legumes, legumes, right? For some reason, legumes are, you know, the big one. So I'd probably avoid peanuts, since it seems like peanuts have the most of these plant defense chemical compounds. But yeah, going back to Bryan Johnson, right? If you're listening to the algorithm, right, and if you're reading at all this data and scientific research, right, which for years has been biased towards a plant-based diet, right, is it really accounting for all these anti-plant nutrients? I don't think so. Because if people think about plants and plant-based diets and, people that are very vegan or pro-veggie, they don't know about the downsides of, you know, the plant defense chemical compounds. They'll talk about like, oh yeah, we understand, you have problems with zinc and B12 and B6 and absorbing all these other nutrients and, heme iron, which is the best possible version of bioavailability of iron, right? If you get iron from spinach, right, then that's just oxalates. You can't really absorb that pretty well. So to a degree, they understand on a micronutrient level on why a plant-based diet is not the best, right, in certain regards. But when you factor in plant defense chemicals, which are really anti-nutrients, it really messes with your digestion, because people need to understand that you aren't what you eat, you are what your body is able to absorb, right? So if you have really bad digestion and you're having all these problems digesting your proteins, your fats, and your carbs, right, then you're not really utilizing all the energy. You're not really extracting all the nutrients. So you gotta be mindful, right? Well, let's start with the mouth, right? We're gonna start from the north to the south. You get food, you chew your food, right? You chew it, you chew it, you chew it. Ideally, you should, when you chew your food, right, chew it to a mush. You know, some people take a big chunk of something, they chew it, they eat it, swallow it. But you're supposed to chew your food into a really fine chyme. You know, it's just supposed to be, let's say you eat a steak, let's say you eat, I don't know, veggies if you're doing that kind of thing. You're eating fat. It should turn into a mush, a really nice fine mush. You shouldn't be swallowing chunks of food, because we have mechanical digestion from our teeth, and then from our salivary glands we have lysozymes, which are, disinfectants. It kills bacteria that are pathogenic. And then you have, I believe you get lipase, breaks down some of the food. I think you got what, trypsin, chymotrypsin, get some proteins in there, break down the protein. And then you have some amylase. And that all helps break it down, right, into a nice fine mush called chyme. Then you swallow it, goes into your stomach. Your stomach should be acidic. You should ideally have a pH value between, I think, between 1.5 and 3, right? So your stomach acid should be very acidic. And it's got to be acidic because you got to kill all the pathogens, right? Anything bad, you drop food on the floor, there's bacteria, you want to make sure you kill it. So what happens, right, is you also have hydrochloric acid, you have your parietal cells, you have, it's interesting, right? People always ask the question, right, very philosophically, why doesn't our stomach eat itself from the inside out, right? And the reason it does that is because it's not until you eat food, right, that it activates the pepsin. So you have pepsinogen, it mixes with hydrochloric acid, and then you get pepsin, and then, then your stomach begins to get the acidic level to break down your food, right? When you're not eating food, then it inactivates, because you have the active form and inactive form. So, quick little fact, that's why you don't eat your stomach out, because, you need food. And when you don't have food, it inactivates. And then you have all these intrinsic factors in your stomach, helps you with nutrient absorption. Again, you break down your food. And then it moves into your small intestine, right? It goes out through the pyloric sphincter, if I remember correctly. And from right there, the beginning part, right? The jejunum, or however you want to call it. From there, you have your bile, you have your gallbladder, you have your liver, right? Your liver makes this acidic, is it acidic? In a sense, it's acidic in a toxic way. But really, you have bile, these bile cells, right? And their purpose is to break down your fat, right? To break down your fat, there's lipase, there's other chemicals that go in there, and it helps you break down your fat, right? Break down your food. But there's also release of sodium bicarbonate. And at that point, then you want that part of your body to be alkaline because it helps kind of neutralize the acid from your stomach. So then it could go through your small intestine into your large intestine, goes through the villi, little finger-like projectiles or projectiles. I don't know. Not projectile. It's not like you shoot it out, right? But it's projection, right? It's coming out of your walls, and it's kind of like grass, right? In a sense, grass nice and flowing, and as it grows and it touches it, absorbs your nutrients, right? So when it comes to digestion, people need to realize you don't want that to be affected. If it's affected by these inhibitors of your proteins, right, which inhibits protein digestion, inhibitors of, glucose, carbs, right? You don't want that. Same thing with fat, right? You don't want anything to inhibit your digestion of fat, right? Because fat you need for fat soluble vitamins. It's important for your cells, your membranes, for making cholesterol, to then give you, your cortisol, right? To give you your steroid hormones, your sex hormones, your testosterone. So knowing that, right, it's like, why would you want to eat certain plant foods that are going to be detrimental to your digestion of nutrients, right? And I think this is why some people go carnivore and they feel amazing. And I think you have some people that go keto. They go keto, they feel good. But I think the detriment of keto, right, is, they get a lot of oxalates from, these cute little keto foods, the new version of junk food. And I think the oxalate will mess with people in a bad way. Because people say they're doing keto and then, they feel sick, they feel kind of bad, their joints hurt, and, it's because of the oxalates. So, if you're a vegan vegetarian, right, you maybe get only a good 5 years, 10 years before you start to tank. It's kind of sad, right? There was this, I think it was recent, maybe like last week. There was some vegan chick. I think she was from Eastern Europe or something, right? She was very pretty. Eastern European chicks are kind of hot. And, she died, right? She was a vegan. She did it for years. I think she went raw vegan. And she died. And it's sad, Nice person, I've met vegans, vegetarians. They mean well. They truly do, right? They don't want to hurt animals, but, they don't understand the detriment they're causing to, vast fields to the biome of the world, right? They don't know, bless their hearts, right? They think they're doing the best thing they're doing, but it's really detrimental, right? I think it was best put by, what was it? One episode of Yellowstone, if you don't like that kind of thing, where the head dad talks about how, you got farmers, they're plowing the fields, putting pesticides, insecticides, they're, killing bunnies, and the process, right, is you're killing all the insects, which you need, because insects, they crap on your crops, and, you need that, right? It's fertilizer. They go into the soil, they break the ground, and the plant roots are able to go deeper and extract minerals from the rocks that are there, so you get nutritious plants, right? But when you pesticide everything and kill everything, the land then starts to die. Soil should be really a pretty nice black, rich color, right? If you see soil that's brown or, lighter brown, it's not black, then it's just dirt, Because soil has microbes. It's got a bit of rock, has some yeast in there to help, the plants with getting, the minerals from the rocks. So, insects die there. And, when you die, you become a part of the earth again. So the nutrients from the dead body will go into the earth again. And it'll feed the plants, the trees, whatever have you. So, yeah, you're killing bees. There's been a reduction in bees last 20 years. Not a lot of flying insects anymore, right? I remember when I used to be younger and going on a car trip, you come back and your window would be just splattered full of all these bugs, right? That's crazy, right? You don't see that anymore, right? Went to San Antonio with a friend of mine and Pharma Drive, and we maybe killed like what 3 flying winged insects. Back in the day, I mean, it would be like a splatter fest. So really, I mean, these farming practices have been detrimental on the world. So we're doing all this, killing biomes, killing insects, killing little animals, disrupting the ecosystem, just for a field of shitty soy. Soy sucks. You don't need it. Makes you estrogenic. That's why guys are getting man boobs, or they're becoming more androgynous looking, less manly. Testosterone's tanking. It's a food we don't need. It's not necessary. And we're doing all this harm just for inferior food. Farming used to be common back then because everyone was doing subsistence farming, right? It means you were subsisting. You weren't prospering, right? You were just getting enough veggies, of potato, right? And that's something, so you wouldn't die of malnutrition, right? It's better to eat something than nothing, right? You don't want to starve. That's why everyone back then had these gardens, right? There weren't the cute little V for Victory gardens in World War II, right? I'm talking about like 1800s, 1700s, So when you realize we're killing the fields for food that's inferior, right? It's going to hurt you. Because you're getting these foods that have these plant defense chemical compounds and we're eating them. Of course, herbivores have, talking about the animals, right? They've been able to adapt. And as the years progress and they adapt and you get little mutations and, they adapt. But I don't think humans have been adapting. It's kind of odd. They're not really adapting. That makes you wonder. But getting back to the point, right? So if you're Bryan Johnson, right, and you're trying to live as long as you can, right, and you're using the data that's biased and vegan, vegetarian, plant-based foods, right, they have this onslaught of all these chemicals in your body that are going to affect you, right, from plants, right? And it's the same argument that Monsanto was able to, you know, legalize the use of glyphosate, despite being bad for your gut, bad for your brain, bad for living. It's killed people. It's given people non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and other cancers we don't even know about. So, yeah, I think the judge was like, well, what's another toxic compound? Then they legalized glyphosate, and now they're making another one. I'm up late at night, I'll see commercials for Paraquat, and people got cancer from that. I'm like, when are we going to stop poisoning the ground, right? I think plants are great, right? To the extent we can use them for, medicine, for herbs. This will be necessary. But remember, humans don't have an herb deficiency. We use vitamins and we use minerals. And we have macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fat. I'm much more of a fat guy, I prefer eating fatty acids because you don't need carbs. No one's ever told you that. A carb is a necessary nutrient. And the reason it's not necessary is because you can live without it. You go your whole life without eating carbs and you'll be fine, right? Because your body can regulate glucose through gluconeogenesis, which is kind of crazy, right? But people don't talk about that. And then there's I'm gonna call it a rumor or a pseudo fact. They say, oh, it's stressful on the body, right? You gotta convert amino acids into, you know, glucose. But it's not stressful because although it's not the best bioavailability, right? That rate, right, of where you convert the amino acids to glucose, it doesn't need to be great. People forget that. It needs to be enough for your blood sugar to be balanced. Once it's balanced, it'll be fine. You don't need an excess because you're running on ketones, running on fat, lipolysis. And that's what's going to keep you going on a keto diet or a carnivore diet. So I wouldn't be afraid of that. Going back to Bryan Johnson, right? If you're Bryan Johnson and you're listening, which I'm sure you're not because I'm just some random ass guy, right? But it's an MTP who is passionate about, researching nutrition, health and wellness for the last 7 years of my young life. I'm thinking, right, we need to be focused on eating foods that are that's right, nutrient rich. You want to be eating a lot more meat, right? You want to get a lot of meat in your body. You want to get enough fat to give you the energy you need to feel great, right? To go through the day. So let's see, I think he's got a stack of supplements. He has ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, not only is it good for you, honestly, I hear a bunch of muscle bros saying, yeah, it's good for you. It gives you shit ton of testosterone, makes you fucking swole. But after a while, right? I think it goes down a lot. It actually reduces their testosterone, their free testosterone, which they need, right? So really, it tanks their testosterone after a while, right? A B complex, I don't even know what's in that B complex. Oh wait, it's linked. Nice. Let me see. Okay, so diamond hydrochloride, good. Riboflavin, why would you need more? Just eat meat. Niacinamide, you don't need that. Just eat meat. B6, just eat meat. Folate, alright, that's useful. We need more folate. There needs to be more folate in the ground. We used to produce folate from, our gut. We don't really do that as much, right? Because, with all the toxicity in the world and the glyphosate everywhere. Biotin, who cares really? Pantothenic acid, who cares? You get enough of that from meat. So you don't need to take a supplement, just, get some meat. That's all you need. Bioavailable. Humans are raised on it. Oh, okay, then there's another one. This one was real crazy, right? People were crazy about sulforaphane, which is from broccoli, right? And it's when you chew on this broccoli that it activates this sulforaphane. And people say it's good because it activates your immune system. But there's two ways of thinking about this, right? It's activating your immune system. What does it mean? It means it's turning on your immune system, right? Maybe I've ate fucking poison. It's like, oh, it activated your immune system. Nice. It's like, no, it's activating my immune system because this shouldn't be in my body. My body's fighting this. It's trying to detox this crap. I'm not going to cheer that on, Sulforaphane, it's so good for you. No, man, it's turning on your immune system because you don't need this thing. Then what's this one? Vitamin C, right? I'm mixing vitamin C, right? And the reason I'm seeing that right is because vitamin C isolated as ascorbic acid is not vitamin C. I don't give a shit what people say, right? Vitamin C as ascorbic acid is not vitamin C. Vitamin C is a complex. Vitamin C you get from eating an orange, right? You eat a banana, right? You have P factor, J factors, you have retinine, you have all these other little factors from eating a whole food source of vitamin C, right? And that is vitamin C. Isolating ascorbic acid by itself is not vitamin C. I don't care what people tell you. You need the complex. Then he's taking, let's see, I should just right click this. Comes out faster. Okay, so he's got cocoa. Again, you don't need cocoa. The reason I'm going to say this is because it has a lot of copper, which should disrupt your zinc to copper ratio. I talked to a lot of people and they have copper water pipes, so you are what you are, right? Your body's absorbing all this copper from pipes. So I think when you take a shower, right, or you wash your hands, it's going to disrupt the zinc in your body to an extent. Also, you need cocoa. It's got a shit ton of oxalates. So I wonder how his joints are feeling. He's taking another vitamin, but the link was kind of odd. CoQ10, I mean, it can help. I don't think you need it, but I just don't think you need it. You eat meat, you get cooked in, you're good. D3, you don't need it unless you're really sick, right? Or you're battling a problem. But when it comes to D3, just get some sun. You need sun. DHEA, that can be helpful for balancing your testosterone, balancing your hormones. I think he's taking garlic, a supplement of garlic. Yeah, he's doing it for the allium. I don't think allium is good for you. I think allium messes with your detox system, and it forces you to have more molybdenum. Because you need molybdenum in your phase 1, phase 2 detox system to actually process it and get rid of it. Let's see. Ginger root, I guess that's okay. Maybe. If you need energy, if you don't need energy, then you don't need ginger root, you know? But then if you need energy, that's a problem with what you're eating already to begin with. Oh, interesting. Einstein. I've never heard of this, so I can't say anything about it because I know nothing about it. Oh, it's for women, apparently. I should research this. This is interesting. Glucosamine, that could help you with your joints. You get that from meat, bone broth, no big deal. Iodine, potassium iodine. I don't know about iodine. Iodine's weird. Iodine's tricky because you have the sodium, potassium. You have the sodium iodide transporter. Then it converts into iodine from iodine, and then goes around the body. Then from iodine to iodide. It's weird. I don't know what to think about iodide. I would think to an extent it would block the receptor, the iodide. But I think there was a Abraham protocol, and some people benefited, some people didn't benefit from taking a massive amount of potassium iodide in the form of Idorol or what's the base form? I forgot the name. But basically, the pill form is Idorol. That's a weird one. Vitamin K2, that's good for you. We don't get that in our diet, unfortunately. K1, I don't think you need, but K2, MK4, K2, MK5. All right, that's cool. I think that's beneficial. He's taking lithium. I don't know if he's a mental patient, but there's no point in having lithium. Unless he can't be calmed down, but and that's the problem with your hormones. Lycopene. Now, lycopene's funny, right? I think lycopene's a sort of, cancer, right? It leaves chemo to, to kill you, but, hopefully it kills the cancer before it kills you. That's the logic with lycopene. So if someone takes lycopene over a large period of time, right, it can actually mess with your prostate. They take lycopene to help with prostate health, right? But if you take it too long, it actually hurts it in the end, right? So if you have a problem with your prostate, it's killing whatever is affecting your prostate. And if you keep taking it, it then hurts your prostate. So I would never recommend lycopene. Never recommend it. Don't do it. N-acetylcysteine, that could help you to an extent. Taurine, that's good for you. Sure, why not? Just eat meat. Xanax, then. I don't know if you need that. Oh, cool. He's taking zinc, 15 milligrams. What's he taking? He is taking zinc citrate, which is garbage. If you want good zinc, you want zinc picolinate. I don't care what the literature says. Zinc picolinate specifically will always be the most and best bioavailable source of zinc. So, if he's taking only 50 milligrams of zinc citrate, he might need more because it's not the best. Turmeric with piperine. Piperine is one of the bioactive compounds in black pepper. I don't think it's good for you. And the reason why I say it might not be good for you is because it actually shuts down your detox. It slows it down a lot. And people say, oh man, it's amazing, it's good for you, right? You take black pepper with your whatever bullshit you're taking, right? Turmeric, for example, right? And then it says, oh yeah, it stays in your body longer. The problem is your body tries to get rid of this stuff, right? If you shut down your detox and your body can get rid of it, then yeah, of course you're going to feel bad. It's not good. It's never good. It was never good for you. So they say, oh, take all these things your body wants to get rid of and then keep it in your body longer. That's a horrible way to think about it. I don't know why they would do that. fucking crazy, in my opinion. Never take anything with piperine. Turmeric can help you every now and then, but as you address the issues over time, you need no turmeric. It's good for a little bit. Proferrin. What is proferrin? Heme iron polypeptides is proferrin. Just eat meat, man. You don't need that. I think it takes more things. Vitamin E. Vitamin E is weird. You need a mixture of tocopherols and tocopherols, and it's mixed in the literature. It can help you. It can't help you. I don't think vitamin E is necessary. Maybe you got cancer. Sure, why not? EPA supplement. Okay. EPA is good for your brain, of course. You do need some of that, along with DHA. But at that point, you need some fish, right? And one of the problems I have with fish oil and that kind of stuff is they're often rancid. They're oxidized. You know, you want to eat fresh fish to get the stuff not oxidized. Takes more garlic, more ginger root, more glucosamine, hyaluronic acid. Takes lysine, just eat meat, man. L-tyrosine, dude, just eat meat. Taurine, just eat meat, dude. Viviscal, what's Viviscal? Assuming it's like a multivitamin. Oh, is it for hair loss or what? Let me see. What's in it? Oh god, I don't know what's in it. I like to read the back of things, but I don't see a back. Yeah, fine, whatever. Suppose I'll move on. Melatonin before bed, 300 micrograms. Recently there was a controversy with melatonin, and this controversy was they were examining different makes of melatonin, different brands, and some had a crazy amount of melatonin. Some had like way more than you needed, right? And some had not a lot of it, and some had the right amount that they advertised. The problem with melatonin, right, is when you start taking melatonin before bed, your body starts being dependent on the melatonin you take in exogenously. You want to create it endogenously, right, from your body, from yourself. And what this would indicate to me, right, is Bryan Johnson cannot get good sleep, and it's going to become, like a drug dependent on this melatonin, because your body's will say, oh, I don't really need it anymore. I'm getting all this free melatonin, so I'm not going to bother producing it. It's a bad idea. I think if you want to get sleep aid, you can maybe take an L-tryptophan supplement, so your body can then convert that L-tryptophan into melatonin, so your body does it. Because you don't want to get to the point where you're so dependent on it that if you don't take it for a day, you just can't sleep. So if you want to make sure you have sufficient melatonin, eat your meat. There's amino acid L-tryptophan in there. It works with B6. There's B6 in meat, and it helps you produce the melatonin you need to sleep. What people should be doing is eating their meat. You get everything you need, for the most part, right? But in Bryan Johnson's case, right, if he wasn't a vegan vegetarian eating certain foods that claim that, it's the best because of an algorithm fucking said so, right? Then he wouldn't need maybe 80% of the stuff, right? Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. Other things, right? Takes extra virgin olive oil every day. Sure, whatever, I guess. Pea protein. Just do whey. Whey's better. You get it faster. 15 grams of dark chocolate. Oxalate problem. Rapamycin. You don't need that, dude. HGH. Oh, he discontinued human growth hormone 100 days because of side effects. Okay, so I can't really talk about this one because I don't know what 17-8E2 is. Transdermal, so he's putting some kind of cream on, I suppose. Testosterone patch, 2 milligram, 6 times weekly. You don't need testosterone patch, dude. You gotta fix yourself. NDGA50, I don't know what that is, so I can't really talk about that. B12 methylcobalamin, Just eat meat, dude. Just eat fucking meat. You don't need that. Aspirin, 81 milligrams, 3 times a week. Aspirin's weird. Every time the news comes on, every few months, oh, aspirin's good for you. It's bad for you. Take a baby aspirin. This and that. I don't think humans need aspirin. Maybe it could help you for, if you have problems with your blood, right? It's all thick and sticky and clumpy, right? If that's the case, I think there was some research done on grounding. You go outside, remove your shoes or socks, put yourself on the ground for 15 minutes a day at least, and apparently it helps you with your blood to not be all clumpy and togetherness. So you don't need aspirin. If anything, it'll put a strain on your liver. Your liver's got to detox the hell out of aspirin and Tylenol, all this shit. If you need it, you need it, right? But just take it 3 times a week, willy nilly. You don't need that, man. And then he's taking, okay, 112 micrograms of levothyroxine, 60 milligrams of armor thyroid, because he has hypothyroidism at age 21. That sucks for him. So I think 112 milligrams of levothyroxine, right? It's the thyroid medication everyone takes. I think it's funny, right? I've never heard anyone getting off of thyroid medication. So if you have a thyroid problem, I don't see selenium. Unless he's taking a micro vitamin that's only selenium. I don't see it here, but I don't see it. He's taking iodide, but I mean, I've heard some people talking about how iodide can block and actually disrupt the function. But it's weird because it's hypothyroidism. Because the difference between hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's is autoimmune, which means iodine can make it worse. So if he is hypothyroid, and still hypothyroid, and he's taking levothyroxine and armor thyroid, which is, a desiccated supplement of, thyroid, right? From either a pig or a cow. If he's not better, and he's 40, I think he needs selenium. Poor guy. Okay, apparently he was doing this thing with blood. Something like, he's got a son. It's kind of weird and creepy. I don't know about that. I know some people do that. It was a big thing maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Article came out about, these people in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, etc., about their withdrawing blood from young, healthy people, and then they're just giving to these older millionaires and billionaires, and using blood to get younger. So, I don't know, man. It's kind of odd. He takes minoxidil, which is for your hair. I don't know why he needs that. Unless he's having hair problems, you're trying to prevent it. I mean, he's got long hair. He's got a good amount of hair in his head. What was it? He was doing something else and he stopped doing it. Oh. So he would do 3 ounces of alcohol every morning? Which is weird because when you read the literature, and I'm going to say this over and over again, alcohol does fucking nothing for you. It is so fucking useless. It's going to hurt you, and hurt you, and hurt you. It messes with their alcohol dehydrogenase system and your body for detoxing. It messes with your mental clarity. It messes with everything. So I wouldn't recommend that. Don't drink alcohol. It doesn't help anyone ever at all. Don't drink. Don't encourage people to drink. It's gonna fuck their lives up. It always does. Mentally, people don't feel good. It's a depressant. Why are you gonna willingly take a fucking goddamn depressant and make you feel bad? Don't do that. Don't drink. Don't drink. You feel better. You get healthier. You can work out. Take supplements. Take vitamins. Eat more meat. Best thing I would say. Then I would say you're good. You're better. No one needs alcohol. It's addicting. I get that. But stop doing that. So he does fasting. That can be helpful for people. That's good. Okay, so he takes spermidine, which and chlorella. Problem with chlorella is it's got heavy metals in there. He's taking spermidine. It sounds funny, but I hear it's a good thing. It can help you with certain things, but there's not much more research on that. Cinnamon, cinaldehyde, messes with your liver. Taking collagen peptides, which is cool, I suppose. He's doing black lentils. I don't know if he's cooking them correctly. Shiitake mushroom, cauliflower, garlic, ginger root, cumin. I don't know how he could eat this and feel not hungry. Is that chicken? He's eating chicken? Because I got a feeling at some point in the future, he's going to come back round circle and start incorporating a lot of meat, eating more meat. Because you just can't keep subsisting on a plant-based diet. You'll eventually fall apart. But it just shows, all these supplements and vitamins and minerals he needs to take just to mimic a fraction of the power of eating meat. Meat's very nutrient-dense. If he ate meat, he would eliminate 80% of his supplements and not, have an intake of these plant-based compounds. He's still a young guy. He's in his 40s, right? So he's reduced his aging. That's cool. Aging damage lower than 80% of 18-year-old adults. Nice. Field 2 max. Athletic. Dense bone. Good. Perfect liver health. I hope so. I mean, he's putting his liver through quite a strain. He's leg pressing. 800 pounds. Nice. He's fit. It's good. But at some point, he's gonna just eat himself from the inside out. Because he's not getting a lot of protein. And when you don't get a lot of protein in your body, you will eat yourself out. This guy's like right there in the cusp of being like amazing. But he's not eating meat. You gotta eat meat, man. His biomarkers look good. You know what? If you're doing all this shit and you're doing testosterone patches and you're only at 769 testosterone, that's not good. There are people naturally getting your testosterone to like 900, over 1,000. Man, I think if you stopped cholesterol 158, ALT 18, that's interesting. I think he'll come back full circle and start eating meat and incorporating it. I don't know how long he's been doing this, but this is interesting. I hope he continues on. You know, let's see. I think he's been doing this since what 2021, I think maybe. But I wish him luck. We need more people with a shit ton of money just doing weird things because we might get data that's useful. And like I told people, you have all these studies, all these things, right? But at the end of the day, right, you're only as good as you feel and what you think from your intuition of foods you're eating. So if you're eating foods and you feel bad, I would tell people, if it tastes bad, don't eat it. If it tastes good and you feel good, eat it. It's that simple. But that's enough about Bryan Johnson. I went to that alien conference in Edinburgh on Saturday. That was pretty fun. I got to meet the two guys from Ancient Aliens, Mike Bara and David Childress. Pretty cool. Met the Paranormal Rangers, these two Navajo Rangers. Pretty cool. Other speakers there, they were good. But I mean, I like aliens and stuff, and I've been looking into it for quite a while. But when I was looking at Mike Bara's presentation, I was kind of blown away, right? Because he's a legend, right? That when it comes to JFK, he died because he knew about aliens or something like that, right? So he's saying that when Kennedy died, right? We're talking about MJ-12, Majestic 12. It was these 12 people, scientists, military people, and people of power, right? Got like Alan Dulles, got Roscoe Hillenkoetter, first person to head the CIA, and it was saying they planned to kill Lancer. There was a leaked document or something. Talked about how they wanted to take care of Lancer, which was Kennedy's Secret Service code name, and they wanted to kill him because they didn't talk about aliens. And for years, before the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy wanted to tell Khrushchev and speak with him and be serious about him, wanting to get together. Instead of having this Cold War space race, we could do this Cold War space unity and not have a war. And get together with the Soviet Union and say, hey, we have the same goal. We're different nations. You're commie. We're capitalist. But we both want to get to the moon, right? We want to explore. Humans have this drive to want to explore things, right? Space is the final frontier, and we want to know what's out there. And apparently, Kennedy knew about Roswell and their alien bodies and stuff and whatnot. But what's interesting is the national security apparatus didn't want him to do the unity. And what scared them, right? These people in high power, people that could do things, CIA, military generals, they didn't want him to share technology that we will find up there. Apparently there was ruins in the moon and there's technology there. It's interesting, right? But they killed him in Dallas. Do not speak about aliens, that we know there's aliens, that we do have craft, that there are ET bodies, that there are people out there. We're not alone in the universe. So I found that pretty interesting. And he was telling me about it wasn't Oswald that killed Kennedy per se, but it was an officer Tippett of the Dallas police that killed him. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And after that, Oswald got caught because he killed Tippett later on. So that was pretty weird. Then later on, Jack Ruby kills him. And it was just an interesting presentation. There was some guy there who was a veteran and came to Dallas to visit his mom on that same day. And he saw the shooter, said the shooter was in a Dallas police uniform, took a shot and killed Kennedy. And Mike Bara showed 3 different, stills of videos that went on. And what's cool is when the first shot came, everyone looked forward to the side. And later on, people looked behind. So it's like Tippett took the first shot to kill Kennedy, because when Kennedy got shot, the blood splattered from that direction, right? So they're thinking, Oswald was up there, as a patsy or whatever, kind of blended on him. But he was never charged with it, which is interesting. That's why people thinking, he killed Kennedy, which wasn't true. Apparently, it was some Dallas officer called Tippett. Those 3 were seen at Jack Ruby's club. It was Tippett, Jack Ruby, and Oswald, and, they met there 10 days before this happened, and they were planning it. And apparently on that day, right, when Kennedy was going to go speak in Dallas, his speech was to tell people, don't be worried, have courage. There are aliens out there. Don't be afraid. This is going to be exciting. We're going to go on to a brighter future, have a world that's peaceful and, no poverty, and we're going to eliminate all these things that are bad. And apparently that was a speech that they found in his coat pocket. So I thought that was interesting. And then you had, what's his name? David Childress, talking about megalithic structures and how, a lot of these things aren't possible. Similar things around the world. Something interesting was that there were these stone balls around the world. And then within these stone balls, there was there's a purpose for them, but no one knew what the purpose was. People just knew that there was these balls made of stone, and yeah, all over the world, different places, remote, Bulgaria apparently, South America. They found some in California when they were digging the trail because there was like hills through the what was it, the electric trolley or whatever, and they don't know what they are. Costa Rica, some of them are as big as a Volkswagen apparently. It's talking about making like structures, all that kind of thing. That was pretty cool. And then Paranormal Rangers were these Navajo guys. They're just like regular cops. And the story goes, they were put in this unit, special activities, just things that are unique to investigate things like Bigfoot, skinwalkers, hauntings, and that kind of things. The guy before them was kind of rude, kind of an asshole. People would have stories, and they would just laugh and ridicule the people that were telling stories that didn't believe. So the chief got upset and placed these two guys, I think it was Stanley and John, to the unit, to head the unit, and to take it serious, right? Like any other cop that has to do an investigation, right? Whether it's a murder or, gotta investigate things, you take it serious. And they take it serious, and, they had all sorts of stories, which are pretty cool. One of them saw Skinwalker. Apparently, their culture, they're, you know, scary, demonic, in a sense, that they're using, like, black magic rituals to turn into, like, this wolf or whatever. They turn into owls, birds, coyotes, wolves. That was interesting. I never really heard much about that. And, yeah, they had a panel. People talked about, David Rush, and they were kind of blackpilled in a sense. None of them were positive. Well, of course, we should never trust the government, right? Because they've always lied. So people said this only happened because they allowed it to happen, right? With Grush and, had the Inspector General behind him, which would be Charles McCullough. I don't know his history or his past, but, always beware of the government. But yeah, that was fun. Got to talk to a lot of people. Went with a buddy of mine. And yeah, apparently it's been going on for more than 8 years or something. First I've heard of it, and I live nearby. So yeah, if you have an alien conference, go to one. It's interesting. You'll meet all sorts of interesting people, and they'll have interesting lectures. So yeah, that's it for me. I thought I'd share that because that was kind of cool. Kind of the highlight of my weekend. So yeah, thank you for listening to Gabe's Nutritional Ramblings. This was the rambling part. But yeah, uh, much luck to Bryan Johnson. I hope he comes back full circle, eats more meat, gets a little bit of a carnivore, and hopefully his benefits will vastly improve. Also, beware of bad data, bad science, bad studies, paid for by big junk food. They exist, they're real, they fund shitty studies, so you can eat more junk food. So yeah, thank you for listening. Have a great day, and we'll see what I talk about tomorrow. Thank you.